Thank you for joining the Where Do You Stand with Siebel webinar with Bruce Daley. I'm Courtney Sato, Community and Brand Director at Constellation Research. Constellation Research is a specialty research and advisory firm focusing on helping our early adopter clients harness the power of disruptive technology. Bruce Daley is Vice President and Principal Analyst focusing on Salesforce automation and mobile technology. Today we're going to discuss where you stand with Siebel, your options for what to do with your Siebel implementation, how to evaluate your stance with Siebel, and steps you can take with your Siebel career. You'll be able to ask questions at the end of the webinar. The recording of this webinar, along with the slides, will be available for download on our blog shortly after the webinar commences. You can follow along with Twitter with the hashtag SiebelChat. Bruce?
Thank you so much, Courtney. Bruce Daley here. Welcome, everybody. Now, as a number of you know, I edited a publication called the Siebel Observer for a number of years. And during that time, I thought about Siebel a lot. I followed it pretty closely. Before that, I was actually doing simple Siebel implementations in the field, so I have some hands-on experience with the product. So I could say I've really devoted a lot of my life to Siebel, to thinking about Siebel, to following Siebel. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised that we're having this webinar, because you'd think that in 2013, everything that could be said about Siebel had already been said. That's turning out not to be the case, and really the reason for this webinar is really twofold. I'd heard that Siebel was dead, and so I had to look into it. And when I did, I found out that there's a major misperception in the marketplace. Siebel, in fact, is not dead. Siebel is a robust application. It's a seasoned application, so there's some signs of decline as well as some signs of robustness. But more than that, I've never really seen a situation in the market where a product was so misunderstood. Now, there's some reasons for that. We're going to touch on those in a minute. But I think most importantly is I have a real sense that people who have dedicated their lives to, as in a sense I have, to working with Siebel, have some real concerns about their future career, and I want to address those. And I think the most valuable part of this webinar potentially is going to be you're thinking about your career in a little bit different way than you have in the past. And with that said, why don't we get started with our agenda? What we see here is obviously the reason for this webinar from sort of a corporate perspective is to announce a report that I've written. It's called The State of Siebel in the 2013 Marketplace. It's a research report that I've written for Constellation Research in association with Ray Wang and, of course, the other great analysts there. There's been a lot of back and forth in that. Normally this report would be for sale, and if you want to buy a copy, you can find it on the Constellation Research website. But I'm also pleased to announce that one of our clients has picked up reprint rights for this paper, and you'll be able to download it for free and receive the full 30-page report, which I'll be touching on later on. So obviously I've announced now the release of that report. That report comes out today, a little later today. We'll be emailing you all the information about where you can find it. And of course, having the vanity of an author, I really hope that you read it carefully, but I can understand you're busy. So we're going to really basically cover all the points that are made in that report in this webinar. The report's pretty long, it's pretty detailed. We may not get to every specific point. So we're going to have a question and answer period where you can ask questions that don't come up. Also, I want to mention I'm going to be at Oracle Open World next week, so if something doesn't get addressed now, you're at Oracle Open Week, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll try and address your questions and concerns in person. So this is basically our agenda. Let's get started though with the real, what I think is probably the most important and significant piece, and that's really about where we are as a society, and or where we are as technology professionals in the Siebel world. So Siebel now is 20 years old. The initial development of the product began back in 1993, and if you're old enough like I am to remember back then, it was different times. Jurassic Park was the big movie. Now it's Iron Man 3. Janet Jackson was considered the leading pop star. Now it's Bruno Mars. But perhaps most significantly is the changes that have taken place in technology. hard to believe, but back in 1993, there were only 500 websites, 500 web pages in total. The internet hadn't really been, it wasn't actually legal to perform anything commercial on the internet. Browsers had just been invented. And in a span of about 20 years, there are now over 4 billion web pages. So the point of this really is that this is a technology trend, a technology tsunami that really the developers of Siebel couldn't anticipate. And another one obviously was smartphones. I'm not sure, there might have been smartphones that exist in the laboratory. I'm not even sure about that in 1993. But today, there's 1.5 billion smartphones, or one for every 1 in 5 people in the world. So obviously that's another feature that really, as great a job as they did, the original technologists couldn't have anticipated. Now, from a career perspective, though, it's fun to look back, but it's more important to look forward. So let's talk about that a little bit. We are really headed, as a society and a world, towards a very particular situation. And I want to use the analogy of agriculture initially. In the United States in 1800, it took 90% of the people to grow enough food to feed the other 10%. So 1 in 10, well, I'm sorry, 1 in 9, 10 people were farmers, lawyers, blacksmiths, they were everything else, legislatures. 9 in 10 people were farmers. By 1900, that figure had reversed itself so that 40% of the population could grow enough food to feed 60% of the population. So 4 in 10 people were farmers, 6 in 10 people were shopkeepers or working in manufacturing environments, or soldiers or sailors, or whatever all the rest of the professions are. Today, the statistic is a little surprising. It takes less than 1% of the population of the United States to grow enough food to keep a sizable number of the other 99% obese. So 1% of the people in the United States today are farmers. Now, if you look at manufacturing, the same trend's taking, and this is a century-long trend. At one time, manufacturing peaked out at about 40% of the population was engaged in it sometime in the mid-1930s. Since then, there's been a steady decline in the number of people employed in manufacturing, but a steady increase in their productivity. As a result, roughly 15%, 12 to 15%, somewhere in there, are actively involved in manufacturing. Now, the point here really is that when you look forward over the next 20 years, you need to plan your career to be in the 1%. Because we're headed towards a latte society where 1% is going to grow the food, 1% is going to manufacture the goods, 1% is going to provide services to the other 2%, and the other 97% of the population is going to be drinking lattes or making them. Now, I've got some good news for you. In terms of if you're a Siebel professional and you've got Siebel skills, you can be in that 1%. And the way to do that basically is to recognize that Siebel is not going away. Siebel certainly is going to go in decline, but much like the situation with COBOL, there's going to be a demand for people with Siebel skills really for the rest of our careers. And I don't know how closely you follow the marketplace, but at a time when most, for independent contractors, most billable rates are declining, COBOL skills are actually going up. And the Constellation point of view here is that if you're loyal to your skills, if you continue to get certification, if you continue to keep current on Siebel, maybe you even adopt other CRM packages that you learn, you can be in one of those 1%. Now let's take a look at some signs of robustness in Siebel and why I think that. If you go out in the marketplace today, if you ignore all of the information in the trade press, if you ignore all the information that is coming from the financial analysts, the industry analysts, what you see basically is that Siebel, even though it's 20 years old, it displays a lot of signs of robustness. Some of the signs of those robustness is, first of all, it has a very large install base. Siebel was one of the most successful enterprise applications ever. It has roughly now 5,000 organizations around the world that are actively using it to some extent or another. New enhancements are being made every year. There's a release that comes out typically in the fall that includes new features. Siebel Open UI, which took off the top layer of the 3-level architecture, came out last fall. And I understand that Oracle has a lot of good things planned for enhancing the product in the future. Bugs continue to be fixed. Oracle provides support, as does a number of third parties. Um, Oracle is financially stable. You can get training in Siebel. You can become Siebel certified, both from Oracle and from other third parties. And there's lots and lots of consulting services available from specialty consulting firms, from large international firms, from every type of Siebel, every type of consultancy imaginable. So that's all good. All the products, and the takeaway from here is that everything that you need in order to support your implementation is really available commercially in the marketplace. Now, Siebel's also showing some signs of age. One of those signs of age is that the install base is shrinking, that there are new customers who are signing up for Siebel every year, but the number of customers who leave Siebel, either because they're turning it off in favor of another application, primarily a cloud application, or they are going out of business, or they're being acquired, or they've had some sort of corporate restructuring that causes them to turn off their Siebel implementation. The long and the short of it is that trend is going to continue. That there's going to be fewer and fewer organizations running Siebel. So if today there are 5,000, over time, eventually that number will reach zero. The Constellation point of view is that that's not going to happen for a long time. And my personal point of view is it may take hundreds of years before the final instance of Siebel is turned off. Now, fortunately, I won't be alive to see whether that prediction was accurate or not. So, if you don't mind, let's just all assume that that's what's going to happen. Now, something else that's happening, and this is good and bad news, is that people with Siebel experience are leaving the field. They're being actively recruited to help implement other packages, such as Salesforce.com. The feeling is if you can implement Siebel, you can certainly implement other solutions that perhaps aren't as complicated. Fewer people are being trained. The number of training courses being offered is pretty consistent, but sometimes they're getting canceled because of lack of interest. Sometimes the attendance in those classes are smaller because obviously if you're a hot student in the computer science field coming out of school, you want to learn Hadoop, you want to learn big data, you want to learn the newest technology, and Siebel, obviously being 20 years old, is not really that. Although I think in some cases that may be a mistake. Not all the customers are keeping current. After 20 years, you've got a lot of people on a lot of different releases, and to some extent, the Siebel market is fragmenting into some pretty distinct categories that we're going to touch on later, but that we cover more in the report. Perhaps most significantly, the on-premise business model is fallen out of fashion. The rage is all cloud. If you look at how the investor community rates cloud companies, we're really at the peak of where I would say where cloud acceptance, cloud thought, cloud companies are most accepted. On-premise, even though in certain circumstances it still makes a lot more sense, really has fallen out of fashion. And then finally, we've seen a number of consultants, we've seen a number of consultancies that had very significant Siebel practices move off into other areas. So there's both signs of robustness and signs of age. Now, what this is a slide that Oracle has published, and what it's meant to represent is Oracle's plans, at least through 2019, that show that they're already making plans for the next 6 years to do enhancements. And their plan basically is to come up with a feature enhancement in the fall and a maintenance enhancement in the spring, and go back and forth between those two. Internally, in fact, I've been told that Oracle has plans to go all the way out till 2028. So if you have any doubt about the wisdom of sticking with Siebel and the wisdom of being loyal to your Siebel skills, Oracle certainly sees a future for Siebel for quite a few years, and my guess is that there's going to be Siebel releases coming out from Oracle for many years after 2028. So if all the services that you need and all the products that you need are available on the marketplace, if Oracle's planning on continuing to move forward with the product, why is there a perception in the marketplace that Siebel is in fact a dead technology? the question really comes in: who is confusing the market? Who is really portraying Siebel as being at a different place than it really is? And I would really argue that it's coming from three sources. It's coming from competitors. It's coming from people who are trying to make financial profit from Oracle stock and aren't really interested in the long-term success of the company, much less its customers. And finally, I think that Oracle is sending mixed messages about the future of Siebel, and that's confusing the marketplace. Now, obviously, competitors want to sell new software. Obviously, competitors want to penetrate a marketplace that at this point in time is basically 100% saturated. If you look at companies and large organizations, basically every company and large organization has CRM. So the only way that you're going to get new sales at an enterprise level is to replace existing products. So I have to give Mark a lot of credit. I really think among his many other talents, he's probably the most gifted promoter that we've seen in American society since P.T. Barnum. And Salesforce.com is a very, very strong product, and it's incredibly well marketed. So that's one source of where the news that Siebel is dead is coming from. Another one is quite frankly from short-term traders. And we define short-term traders here as people who are holding on to Oracle for less than a year. In many cases, they're really only holding on to Oracle for a day. And in that process, what they want to do is they want to sell their shares at a profit to other short-term investors. It's known in the business as the greater fool theory. I'll buy Oracle, and then I'll sell it to someone who's a bigger fool than I am, is sort of the ethos. Now, Oracle itself, if you look at it from a corporate perspective, it's owned by lots and lots of large, stable institutions, pension funds, mutual funds, people that really don't have a lot of places to park their money. And a lot of the steps that Oracle's taken from a corporate perspective, improving their balance sheet, buying back shares, increasing their dividend, are all really oriented towards the people who actually do own Oracle, which are long-term investors. To placate the short-term investors, in a lot of cases, I believe Oracle is paying lip services to their concerns. Since Oracle is such a well-managed company, in a lot of cases, they don't really have a lot of sticks to beat them with. One of them is obviously their hardware business, and the other happens to be Oracle Fusion and the amount of money that's been spent on that. So some of the confusion is really coming from Oracle itself. I think what's important to understand about Oracle, and Oracle culture is a little bit different than most large companies. One of the reasons that Oracle's been so successful is that it really has an entrepreneurial foundation. It really has an entrepreneurial culture. So what that means is that in a lot of cases, Oracle is really a bunch of tribes operating under the same flag. There are going to be groups in Oracle that are working in some respects really at cross purposes. They're going to be trying to be doing things that are mutually incompatible. And the way Oracle works as well is that it tends to hold executives accountable for results. So if you're managing a business, you're going to be promoted or fired based on how your business does. At the same time, Oracle doesn't really put a lot of restrictions on people. It rewards innovation. So what you have a lot of times is you've got different groups in Oracle who are trying to achieve different objectives. So you might have one group that's supporting a legacy application, that's trying to move it forward, that's doing everything that they can, for instance, the J.D. Edwards group, to really propagate it and make that product as successful as they can. At the same time, you have another group within Oracle that has charted with a completely different mission, and a good example would be the group that's supporting Salesforce.com. Now that Salesforce.com is elected to become an Oracle shop, there are going to be people who are going to be working equally hard to make sure that Salesforce.com is successful, and that Salesforce.com is supported, and that Salesforce.com is moving forward. Now, on the surface, these two things may seem to be contradictory, and I think a lot of times the message from these different groups spills into the market, and that causes some confusion. But understanding Oracle and understanding that Oracle is primarily about revenue, as long as there is a revenue stream that's being produced from existing Siebel customers, Oracle is going to carry that product forward. Now, if they get revenue from other areas, that's really the domain of those other areas. But understanding Oracle, I think, is going to give you the ability to filter out a little bit some of the messages that you're hearing in the market. Now, let's talk about, as the market's fragmented, the different strategies that you can adopt to take your Siebel implementation in different directions. And we've really identified 5 strategies, and one of them is to move forward. So the idea with that is you are going to keep current with the latest release. You're going to generally try and limit your customizations and try and approach vanilla Siebel as closely as you can. Obviously, integrating Siebel with other applications in your organization is a good idea because you're going to be improving the value, improving the business fit for them. And finally, to really follow this strategy closely, you need to advocate with Oracle. You need to really become active in their user communities. You need to make sure that Oracle is making the changes that you need to make your business current. So that's a very good strategy for some organizations. For other organizations, the best strategy is going to be the opposite. It's going to be to move away. That might mean converting to the cloud. That might mean converting to another Oracle product, such as the Oracle Sales Cloud, or perhaps another product like Salesforce.com. You're probably going to want to stay on your current release and not go through upgrades. One of the things I would caution people is that even no matter what the vendors say, conversion of an implement or of any kind of application that is in production is a very difficult undertaking. The systems integrators tell me that on average, it takes 2 to 4 years to convert from a Siebel application to anything else. Now, in some cases, it's taken even longer. Microsoft, which was one of the flagship Oracle accounts back in the day, has taken 6 years to convert from Siebel to its CRM on-demand product. IBM, which at one time was the world's largest Siebel implementation, has taken 7 years to convert from Siebel to Sugar CRM, and by some reports is still in the middle of that process. So when you're thinking about that, especially from a career perspective, I think you have to recognize that moving away, while it may have some benefits if you're in a business that has a lot of change in the business process, a lot of change in the business model, at the same time, you're going to incur some career risk by doing that, and that needs to be considered carefully. For a lot of sites, especially sites where Siebel perhaps is not as well accepted, one thing to consider is a restart. It's entirely possible that the initial implementation wasn't done correctly. And let me give you an example of that. I heard about a client who sells to McDonald's franchisees. And the idea there was that their whole universe was just McDonald's stores. So when the initial implementation was done, they made every store an account. And there's something like 30,000 of them, I think, in North America. But in any event, when it came time to forecasting, the forecast was very, very narrow. Only deals that looked like they were just about to close would get forecast. The VP of Sales was concerned about that, brought in a very prominent consultant to take a look at it, to write some reports. And what he said was, wait a minute, this really isn't implemented right. The way the system is implemented, if you want to do a forecast, you have to implement for every single account, which means you have to implement for every single store. Well, in that business, a franchisee, a successful one, might own a couple hundred individual stores. And so the sales reps, if they wanted to forecast it, they had to do it 200 times, potentially. Once the implementation was re-implemented so that they could forecast by franchise owner as opposed to by franchise store, they saw much greater acceptance of the system. So that's one thing to consider, especially because in comparison with a lot of other options, that's going to be less expensive. Another very popular option is to innovate around the edges, and this is sort of to use a lot of the aftermarket products that are being produced by companies like Buzzient, or Integrate, Customer Systems, KNOA. There's a number of people who are providing solutions that extend Siebel into areas that either Siebel hasn't quite reached yet, or the particular version, if you're on a past version of Siebel, that you can use to extend it. And so innovating around the edges is just the idea of taking those aftermarket products, integrating them into your Siebel implementation, and giving the Siebel implementation more life. Finally, another option that a number of customers is taking is what I call stand pat. What that basically means is that you elect to stand on the current version of Oracle Siebel that you're on, and you don't necessarily keep pace with the new releases that come out. This seems to really fall into two kinds of flavors that are sort of polar opposites. One of these flavors is to customize extensively. Say that really our business is different enough from the software that we're being provided by Oracle, and we're going to do lots and lots and lots of customizations. We need a stable platform to do it. We're going to stick on that current release. So customers in that category are spending a lot of time on customization and a lot of effort on integration. At the other end of the extreme, there are people who are saying, well, we basically want to wait and see. We want to wait and see what our other options are. We want to wait and see what our business looks like. maybe they want to wait and see how they stand from a profitability perspective. And that event, what they're doing is staying on the current version, and they are not really doing any customizations, not really doing any integration. I would really advise those clients, though, to continue to take a look at data accuracy, because data is, in some respects, is going to be the most valuable aspect of any Siebel implementation over the long run. And data, since it's an attempt to model the real world, is always going to be a little bit out of sync, and sometimes a lot out of sync. So those are 5 strategies, and as I mentioned before, you can download the report, and we go into some detail about the pluses and minuses and what the characteristics are of different Siebel shops and which strategy they should follow. So that is a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about next steps. Let's talk a little bit about what you can do as some concrete steps to help both your Siebel implementation and your career. The first one, and obviously here we have pride of authorship, and I don't know how many of you are writers yourself or bloggers, but certainly there's a lot of vanity in that. So what I'm going to suggest is that you take a look at my report. It's fairly long, it's fairly extensive. As I mentioned before, you can actually buy it from us, or you can download it thanks to one of our corporate clients, Rimini Street. We've got the download address right there. So I would say read the report, examine that. It's got an appendix at the end that talks about your career. It's got a section that really talks about strategy. That's one concrete step you can take. Another concrete step that you can take is to participate in a Constellation survey that we're holding. Now, the idea behind this really is, what we've been finding is a lot of people in the 5,000 or so organizations that have implemented Siebel and are running Siebel is that they feel that they're in a silo. They sort of they're doing some really creative, some really innovative things. There are a number of organizations, in fact, where Siebel has become their ERP. It's the principal system that they run internally for their business. They sort of have the sense that they're the only ones out there. So what we've initiated or inaugurated is a survey for people to participate in. You can find it online. If you want, we can also provide you with a written copy of it. All of the survey results are going to be strictly confidential. We won't identify any participants who are participating in the survey without their specific permission. And it asks questions like, how many times has your Siebel system crashed? How often does the business process change in your industry? How many customer records do you have? What version of Siebel are you on? How many people are supporting the system? It's really designed to provide an inventory of where Siebel stands. Once that information is collected, you'll be able to benchmark where your Siebel implementation is relative to the rest of the industry and relative to your competitors in your industry segment. And on the basis of that, what strategy you should choose is going to fall out more clearly, and also that gives you the ability to make a case for that strategy internally within your organization. So that's concrete step number 2. Now, I would like to address any of the questions that you have. If you have questions about your career, if you have questions about your implementation, please go ahead and ask them. I'm also going to be at Oracle Open World next week. And if you're going to attend, it'd be great to meet you in person. There's contact information here. You can call me on my cell phone. You could send me an email. But if there's if you have any time to meet, that'd be great. It would be very valuable to get your perspective. So let me see. Let's take a break and let's for a moment and please send me your questions.